the schedule got a little mixed in.
That's okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for being here. I'm Tony Malone, president of New Kings Democrats. And next up, we have another candidate for public advocate, technologist Theo Chino. He has run for public advocate previously. Welcome, Theo.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So we'll give you a few moments just to give your pitch to the voters, and then I'll ask you a few questions.
Perfect. I'll be very quick. I am a socialist. I'm the socialist leader of the socialist faction inside the Democratic Party. And all we're asking is to create a socialist caucus in the Democratic Party in the state of New York. We have a logo, a beautiful flower. It's a rose held by a hand. What we're asking is very simple. We are very radical. We're asking for free university. We're asking for the anti-death penalty. We are pro-abortion. That means we are not going to do anything against abortion. We are universal healthcare. Those are very radical things that about 75% of the world have implemented. So we don't know why we cannot do it here. We believe in the separation of church and state. That is very important. And what was the last thing? I forgot. Oh, yes, we are for the human. Everybody gets a human chance to do whatever they feel and like. And the state should provide a way to make sure that everybody gets an equal chance to maximize their ability. Famous socialist American. I was thinking of the guy who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance. He was a socialist. Who else? MLK was one. So we can go on, but I will stop there. We have 146 years of history, and I wish everybody look it up.
Thank you.
That's my opening speech. That's who I am, and that's what you're voting for.
Okay. The Public Advocate's Office is a citywide bully pulpit. So what would you use that bully pulpit for if you were elected to this position?
Well, I am a very good screamer, so I would scream against corruption so loud. I am myself a victim of corruption. My rent last month, where I grew up and I was born, went from $200 to $2,000 overnight. And for the last 20 years, we've been asking, where is the money going? And a project of 100 apartment ended up for low income about $100 million. And now they're asking us to pay that money by raising our rent. And they're looking at the location of the building to say, oh, that building is worth X number of dollars. So that's what happened. They promised us Section 8, they promised us a lot of things. And as I went around to look for what the problem was, I realized maybe it's where the politicians are and what is holding them back in following the money and not following what the people need. And that's why I'm running for public advocate today. And as Bully Puppet, we will be discussing every socialist topic on the table. So education, what's wrong with the school, what's wrong with the subway, what can we do better, where can we put the money better use, et cetera, et cetera. So as a Bully Puppet, I'm very good at shouting.
Thank you. What legislation would you plan to introduce, since the public advocate can introduce bills? And how would you work with the city council to advance this legislation?
So when I ran the first time in 2020, 5 years ago, in 2018, at my club, the For Freedom Democratic Club, I would like to introduce the Post Act, which is an act about technology and the police use of technology. During the Black Lives Matter, that bill got passed finally. And so now I have to find a new bill to champion. And that one is simply to put the private public contract on the passport computer system so tenants all around the city can go and figure out, without having to do FOIL that never get answer, they can get the answer of where the money that the developer are using to remanufacture their building, they can have access at the community board. It's basically a bill that Carolyn Maloney introduced a long time ago. Ben Callos, after that, added the computerized part. And I'm saying we need to have everything in that in those computers and accessible at the community board, at each community board by anyone who wants to look into where the public money is spent when given to a private entity. That's one bill. We'll start with that small one. Many of the city council members told me they would introduce it. I've been waiting 6 years for that introduction. So as well run for public advocate and introduce it. Most likely the city council will not be friendly on that. They haven't, but the goal of the public advocate is to do what's right and not to appease the city council. So we are there to be a voice of balance and check, check and balance. So public advocates will be the check on the city council when they don't introduce a bill correctly.
Thank you. What criteria would you use as public advocate when making appointments to various government commissions and boards?
So I am a socialist. I am part of a big network of socialists from around the world, in the Socialist International, the Progressive Alliance. So in our group of people, we have the mayor of Paris is a socialist, the mayor of Rome is a socialist, London, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a network of people who are social democrat that knows how to run city to make them livable. And that's a network of people that exists right here in New York, but are not participating in the Democratic Club because they cannot stand it. But they are here in New York. And those are the people I want to appoint to those positions, people who know social democracy and who know how to run a city based on science-based fact of running a city. So that's how I will look for my appointments. The best and the brightest social democrat around New York.
Okay. On which city agency or agencies would you focus your recommendations for reform? So what agency do you think is most in need of reform, and what tools would you use?
Well, HPD is very personal to me. So we're going to start with housing. Housing is a human right. So because housing is a human right, we need to look at the organization that runs that. So HPD is full of problem and they need to be fixed and looked at and investigated. And the two previous controllers promised me they would do it. And I'm still waiting to this day. That was 6 years ago.
Okay. And given the federal administration's focus on mass deportation and ICE collaboration, how do you plan on using the powers of the Public Advocate's Office to protect immigrant New Yorkers?
Well, it's a bully puppet position, so I will scream abolish ICE. AOC did it in 2018, I believe that. Contrary to my predecessor, New York is a city of immigrant. We come from everywhere, and we never participated in the racist policy that this country has put up to keep us away from the United States. So having to deal with the city, with people's fear, and giving public service as a city, it is normal that we became a sanctuary city. Mayor Koch was right. Giuliani, as a Republican, never took it out because he realized that he couldn't get his police force to work with the community. And socialism is also the right of protection. So being secure in his life, in his dream, is a socialist tenet. So you need to have a police force that you can rely to make sure that everything is done correctly. So we need, as a public advocate, I will make sure the NYPD doesn't work with ICE and that the police officer do not give under the table information to ICE. And we'll need to be pay a lot of attention to those fraternity, like the police union, who are very friendly with the ICE union. So we need to make sure there is no back deal happening.
Thank you. How do you plan to use the oversight and investigations powers of the public advocate to protect New Yorkers against corruption?
Well, I think I answered that, but yes, I will use all the power. Unfortunately, the public advocate doesn't have subpoena power. So the agency of the mayor will sit on it like they've been doing so well. So one bill that the previous public advocate, if I remember from 2019, said they would introduce bill to have subpoena power. We're 6 years later, no bill have been introduced. So that's the second bill I will introduce. Subpoena power to the public advocate so he can work hand in hand with the DOI, the Department of Investigation, and the council member in charge of that committee.
Okay, thank you. And as public advocate, how would you balance the role as a watchdog for the mayor while also collaborating with the administration where possible to advance the interests of New Yorkers?
Well, as I said, I am not there to appease the city council. So if they're doing something or they're not doing something right, the power to put a bill forward and to have the attention of the media on that bill, we can have a discussion publicly if they don't want to have it privately. So I think we can do a lot with the public advocate that use the power of bill introduction can be very effective in calling out the colleague. And I don't plan. I'm a socialist; they're not. So usually we're already going on a ground that is very how you say that, very uh, adversarial. Thank you. Yes, that's the word.
Okay,
So I have to say it out loud.
okay. And for our last question, this is
Yes.
something I have a little bit of personal experience with. You started an organization called Rep My Block, which is very similar to Rep Your Block and tries to fill a similar role of helping people run for county committee. You also are promoting SDA, Social Democrats of America, which sounds very similar to DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. Are you just taking the names of other organizations and changing them a bit to trick people into organizing with you?
Absolutely not. And first of all, SDA was the first SDA was created by Eugene Debs back in 1800. So where we went back to our root. The socialist history of 140 years is full of drama. And Lenin was one of them. When he created his Communist Party, he left the Socialist Party and he took 75% of the membership who voted for him, and he created the Communist Party up in Russia. And there is more history in there. But he decided to create his party to be a better socialist, and he even called his country the Union of Socialist Republic. So he didn't have, and yet that became communism because he used the Karl Marx Communist Manifesto. So the history of drama and confusion within the socialist movement is very old. And the Rep My Block, Rep Your Block discussion, we're doing the same thing differently. And it is an homage to New King's Democrat for the name that they have picked for their program, because it is that. It's about representing your block. But then when we had a discussion 6 years ago, and I felt a little bit disrespected when I was saying let's work together, and they were talking about branding. What it is the brand? And I'm like, guys, we're going to have this discussion, so fine. And I went and I registered Rep My Block on a spur of the moment, and it was a brand fight that happened with Coca-Cola and Pepsi. It doesn't have to be adversarial, but we can have fun, and we're doing the same thing. So we're complementing each other. The movie on PBS, we have a PBS documentary that you can find on pbs.org/show/county. Rep Your Block. It is named in the closing remark. Your organization is the reason we did what we did. SDA is the same thing. Is a little bit the same thing because DSA, I was a lifetime member of DSA, and DSA came to my house in my neighborhood and told me I wasn't a socialist after 20 years of card-carrying member of the French Socialist Party. So suddenly I'm like, wait a minute, what are you doing? And out of that, we started writing inside DSA, we need to come back to our socialist root. Didn't happen. So we do what we do in socialism, we split. And so SDA and DSA are another split between social democracy and democratic socialism, which at the end of the day is socialism, but done differently and putting the accent on different part. So you can see that DSA landed on the Anti-Defamation League. They have a very nice website that explains the whole history. Go check it out. And that's the difference. But it is not about copying. It's about working together, not confusing. We're very open about how we came about. And the history book in 20 years will tell the story, hopefully.
Okay. Well, thank you
But
very
thank
much.
you very much. Thank you, everybody.